Hey gang, so today we're looking at something sent to us by Big White EDC. It's the mechanical Razor 2.0 in polished Zerk. It's listed at $260, and if you use the code FidgetFix, you get 10% off. So this is a very sexy fidget slider. This is actually, I mean, the designs of these things are getting so far beyond just basic fidget sliders with two pieces of material that slide together, that they're almost into their own category. Like, I don't even know what to call these anymore, because it's not really a slider, it's not a clicker, certainly not a spinner, but it's an amazing fidget. So what do you call these? Let's come up with a new category for these. Anything that I found that has a bit more of like a weapon feel to it or something, I kind of call them brutal. That's sort of like the brutal fidget category, at least for me, because they have that sense of them. But we get into these kind of things, and these are sort of like the cyber fidget. I guess, I don't know what these are called anymore. But man, I love them. I love this new era of design for fidgets. These are great. I keep playing with this thing. Okay, so this is mechanical. This is very, very cool. It only does one thing, but you can do that one thing a couple of different ways. So again, awesome, unique, strange. Let's have a look at it. It's the mechanical Razor 2.0. Let's go. Okay, here we go with the Razor 2.0. You know, this is one of these fidgets, as I talked about in the intro, that we entered this new form factor with fidgets. They become very hard to describe, and I like that. I love the other, we'll call them other style of fidgets. These aren't, I mean, it has a slider aspect to it, but it's not a traditional slider. It's not a clicker. It's, you know, these things need a category. And again, I just kind of, the ones that sort of sound like weapons and stuff that have a weapon feel to them, I just call them brutal. It just, you know, the brutal fidgets, because, and it's not a negative term. It's just like that's how they feel to me. Like, they're very aggressive and strong, and I love most of them, trust me. So it's not a negative name. It's just a category that I sort of came up with. These on their own, I don't know what these are. Are these like a mech fidget? Are they like, we have to come up with another category for these, because they become hard to define. If I said to somebody, hey, I've got a fidget slider for you, and I show them this, they would have no idea what this is. This is not a traditional slider. So I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what you think in the comments. Do you think we need a new category for these? If so, I'd love to hear suggestions. So let's get on with this. The Razor 2 is a very, very cool looking fidget. It is sexy as hell. I mean, it really is. Like, just, if you look at this, like, you can't stop looking at it. It's just really, really cool. So let's stop looking and let's start reviewing. You like that transition? All right, let's start off. Okay, playability. Well, this does one thing in a couple of different ways. On the back of here, we have this piece that slides out. And where the playability comes into it is how you get that to slide out. So you can just push from the top. And as you can see, there's a track. And that track is on both sides, because there's a ball and spring right inside here. So when this track moves, let's see if I can keep that a little tough to keep that in frame here. But as the track slides up it, the ball is bouncing inside here. So the whole playability is to get this thing to slide up. And it's the only real moving part in here. Now, there are a number of ways to do it. Some I can't show on camera because it's a little hard to do in this environment when I'm filming, but I will sort of do the slow motion version of it. So there's this normal, where you just press on the top and we're just sliding. There is also a kind of a flick with your thumb here that people will do so they can push it up with the thumb. And there is a nice little space that lets you dig your thumb in. There is, now these are the ones I can't show very well because everything's kind of up close and I've got too much stuff around me to fling this. But if you snap your wrist, this will just kind of pop open. It'll flick up depending on the amount of magnets you put in here. We're going to get to that in a minute. Now the other, and this is something I can't do on camera because again, the angle is terrible for this, but you can sort of shoot your hand forward and as you flick, it'll fire out. Like it'll slide right out of here. I can't do it on camera. There's not enough movement in here, but that is also something though that I would recommend adding a lanyard to. This has a massive lanyard hole and doing that kind of movement really helps if you have a lanyard because then you can hold on to it down here. I find this really kind of scary to flick without the lanyard because there isn't a whole lot of area to hold on to, but the lanyard just gives you all the confidence in the world you need to send this flying. So that is the playability. Other than that, it's just, you know, different ways of kind of opening and closing, but it's all basically the same thing. Okay, sound. Well, we have two sounds. We have the sound of the ball rubbing against this track. It's a mechanical sound. It's tuned really, really nicely and actually has a really satisfying sound to it, I find. And we have this tuning fork plate inside, and the entire plate is the tuning fork. And once we open it up, we'll have a look at it. But that sound comes when you snap this back. And that's just coming from the plate. And what you can see is that these little forks on each side, they're attached on the bottom, but they're not attached on the top. And so that gives us that little vibration as this closes. And for anyone even thinking about the question, you do need this in here for this to function properly. Because underneath the plate, I mean, first of all, this is what lets us kind of slide this up and down without any vibration. We'll see we've got these kind of balls in here. But also, the plate has magnets underneath it that keep this closed. And we see here we've got magnets at both ends. So you need the tuning plate in here. What you can do, if you don't like the sound, is you can wedge something inside to force these little tuning forks open, or like to prevent the vibration. So if you don't like the ping, just pop something in there on both sides. This is probably one of the easier tuning forks to kind of turn off, I guess. It's just by wedging something in here and it won't affect the play at all. Okay, haptics. Very strong haptics just because of the way this is designed. So this vibrates all through your hand. It has a great build to it. So the haptics kind of channel all the way through this because this is just one big hollow body. Lots of vibration. When I hold it, it actually vibrates through the top of my hand like this. And then of course we have our little close. So this close and the snap outwards, if you snap it and it slides up, that actually feels really good too. So you can get into this really satisfying sort of game of flicking back and forth. And it's due to the weight as well. So the weight, just there's something like there's a really nice mix of weight and feedback on this. Okay, ergos. This is there are good parts to this, and there's parts that make it a little tougher. So the ergonomics of just holding it is great. This has a really nice little ledge to it, the little lanyard spot. And there's actually a bit of movement, which made me think this could actually rotate, but I have yet to be able to get it to rotate. But we're gonna have a look at that when we take it apart. But it's got this really perfect sort of thumb spot. Not quite long enough to fit in your entire hand. As you can see, your little finger is just sort of trailing on the end. So, you know, and if you're holding it in your fingers just feels weird. Like you definitely want this little ledge here. And it works the same way the other way. Although if you flip it over, you get these two little wheels that sort of feel a little uncomfortable in the hand. So it's not really meant to hold this way. Same with these two edges. So again, if you have one of these, try to do that. Hold it so that the logo's up and make a fist and tell me if you don't feel these areas digging into your hand. And I mean digging. They're not sharp, but they're there and it's kind of uncomfortable. But this is great, holding it this way. Now, the little bit of a hit with this is part of what they show in the videos is that whole flick. The issue being that there isn't really a lot of space to hold on to when you're doing that flick. And so the idea of this flying out of your hand is really scary. With a lanyard, you're fine. When you put a lanyard on this and this thing is perfect. But I think it needs the lanyard to make it perfect. Unless you're just happy with holding it like this and sliding it up and down. But this is one of those ergonomic pieces where a lanyard is almost a must to really fully enjoy it. Okay, let's look at weight. So we have 119 grams or 4.2 ounces. Let's just call it 4. So 4 ounces. This is a pretty heavy piece. And when looking at the size, let's look here. Overall length, let's say, do it this way. Oh, get on there. 78.5 millimeters. And what is that in inches? That's like 3 inches. And width at its widest, it's almost an inch wide. Yeah, I mean like 0.95 or 0.95 inches wide. So let's call it an inch wide. And we've got 24 millimeters wide here. And then thickness, this is a weird one though, because it kind of slopes down, right? And I'm sure people don't really care about this part of the measurement, but let's just do it. 16 millimeters thick and 0.6 inches. Okay, let's get into the internals. Now this gets a little tricky as we open it. There's a way to kind of do things and I'm gonna walk us through it. Okay, we have our plate inside. We have two pieces here. We have our plate and we have this part. Now we can take the plate off all the way on its own if we want, but it gets a little tricky. So we're gonna take this off first. We're gonna switch this over to a flat. And we have a little screw on each side. Okay. So we have two screws. Now the thing to keep in mind is, remember, there is a spring pushing a ball up against this track. So when we lift this off, we just want to be gentle. There's the ball. Now we have this piece. This does not open, but we do have magnets on either side because that lets us flip. So let's get our little plastic tweezers out here. Okay. All right, now we can take the plate out. Switch over to our T8. This is something you want to be very careful of when you're opening. So you want to press down hard with, I'm pressing down really hard with my thumb because each of these balls, there's 4 on this side, 4 on this side, are being pushed up by a spring. So there are 8 springs forcing this plate up. What happens is if I let go of this, it's not going to fly up, but everything's kind of a mess, right? The springs sort of fall out, the balls fall out. So what I'm going to do is take this track and I want to put it back in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the magnets, these two magnets, are facing down into here because I know for a fact that I have a magnet in here. So I'm going to slide this in. Now, why do I do that? Well, that lets me flip it over, and here I can even put it down and very gently lift off. Now, if you see here, even still, one of my springs kind of let go or fell out of their hole, but let's just put it back. So the reason that I put the plate under here is so that this didn't just drop, right? If I had just popped this over, this would just drop straight down, the springs would fly out, the balls would fly out, and that always kind of panics people a bit because when it first happens, you're not sure what the original configuration was. So if you do it this way, then you can take it off. Then you've just got your tuning fork plate here, and you can at least see where things go. Now notice there's a whole ton of magnets in here. And there was originally 2 magnets, and I took one of them out just to get a little bit more action on that slide when I like shoot my hand forward. But you can put as many magnets as you want in here to kind of play with the tension. I like one magnet in here, it just works well for me. But let's just say you accidentally open it up and everything went flying. Oh no. Well, there you go. This is what you'd end up with. So we've got our tuning fork. It kind of, it's a little tough when I'm holding it. But doing that, I feel it vibrate around the whole piece. So it's interesting that the tuning fork is also the plate. Now, what do we have? Well, we've got a whole mess of stuff. It's not really a mess. This, again, this is a disaster for a lot of people when this happens. It's not that bad. Like, trust me, this is not that big of a deal. So how do we get this back together? Well, what we do is we start building the pieces back up. So we'll take our plate, our slide plate here, or I call it a slide plate. I'm not really sure that's even accurate, but that's what I'm going to call it for now. And the reason I'm doing this is because it has a magnet here, right? So I'm going to lay this on. I'm going to make sure that my tuning fork, the open part of the tuning fork faces away from the magnet, because we'll see in here, this is how we want it. We want the magnet is going to be at the back of here, because this piece, and I know this is going to get a little complicated, but let's just say, okay, imagine I have my magnet in here, again, at the end where the tuning fork's attached, and then I'm going to put it here. Then on my slide plate, my little slider, oh, get in there, you. My little slider has its magnet like this. So if you're ever wondering, well, how does this whole thing go together? Just think, the magnet is at the start, and it's connected so that it doesn't just sort of flop open on its own, right? There's a little bit of tension. And then when it snaps up and then moves back down, this magnet is again going to attach to this magnet. So closed at the bottom, open at the top. This is the top of the slider. So, or fidget, see, there we are. Yeah, just think bottom closed, top open. So this is the last part that we take off. We see these little caps here on the sides. These are magnetic. So just dig a fingernail in there, pop it right out. It can be a little tricky. So this does come out. This is the tiniest little screw ever. Like, what's this? This is, I don't even know what this bit is, but man. Okay, let's take out this other locking screw. Oh, that's interesting. So you can actually change, can we change the angle here? Okay. Well, pins come right out too. So there are two little locking positions. So I guess this lets us change the angle. Oh, interesting. So we can keep it flat or on an angle up. Okay, so this is really just, I guess, a preference thing. I'm not really sure what else, why else you would want to change the angle on this, but I guess you can set it to two different positions. Let's get our pin back in here. Wow, that was quite the journey. Just have to be careful. All right, so let's see. Let's get this in first. Or we could, see, where do we want it? So I guess like in an open position like this. Or flat. All right, so I'm going to stick with this kind of very streamlined flat, so that's flush with the top. So we have this back in place. It's tight. Put our caps on. You know, sometimes these are also for expansions. Like sometimes these are sort of built in a way that lets you eventually kind of move something off of it and attach something else. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, let's put our plate back together. So remember, magnet at the bottom. And we are going to take our magnet and line it up. There you go. So this is now sitting properly. It's the correct polarity. So now what we can do is just start putting our balls into the holes. Now what's important is, remember, we want to put them in the holes that go all the way through. The ones that are just reset holes are meant for magnets. So let's... Okay, so now for the spring. So we put the balls in first because remember, this plate slides across the balls, which gives you kind of a smooth motion. And then these springs can be a little tricky to put in. But this, normally you would always put a spring in a hole and then a ball. This is different. This is why it's tricky. And you can do this a number of ways, but I find this is the best way, is to just put the bottom plate down first. Okay, so we have our plate. We have our springs. Now, if you'll notice, inside here, there are no spaces designed for the springs. They are just going to sit loose, which is why if I tried to flip this over and put it on, like, you know, if I just took the plate and put it in here, all the springs would just fall out. The balls would just fall out. It's a mess. There's no way to keep the springs in there. So what I found is you have to do it upside down like this. Plate on the bottom, springs on the top, get your screw ready. So I'm going to get my screw prepared, because once I turn this over, remember these springs, these are 8 springs pushing against this piece. It's going to want to push the plate up, and then the springs are going to be a mess. So I have to hold this down. The minute I put this in, I've got to like hold it down with my thumb. So I want my screwdriver with the screw loaded so that I don't have to futz around with it and, you know, try to make it work. Okay, so magnet at this end. This means this is the bottom. This is the bottom. So I'm going to line it up here. And the only thing is this post goes into that hole. So when you're lining this up, you know, just put it this way and gently place it down. I say gently because if you go hard, you're going to move those springs around. I can already feel this pressing. So now that I have this on here, see this, having the bottom plate in there lets me kind of sandwich it together. Okay, it's in. It's not connected and this is in the way. Now all I do is I keep pushing down, but I slide. I don't want to lift. If I lift, the tuning plate is going to lift up as well. I slide it off, but I'm still forcing it down with this thumb. But see, now this hand is engaged. That's why I want the screw already loaded. That's it. Now we're in. And this magnet, there's only one magnet holding on to the magnet underneath, but that's just because of the way I tuned it. I like it like that, but you can have two. Now, the last thing we need to do is pop in our spring for the kind of the actual mechanical action in our ball here. There is a magnet inside here as well. Push that down. And then again, we just want to make sure we line up our magnet with here. So magnets always go to the bottom, face down at the bottom. And again, our ball is going to run along this track. I'm sure you could change the ball out for different types of balls. You get different sounds. You don't have to be precise with how you lay this down flat. You just put it down as long as it's down. And you get one of these, because this screw, right, only catches into the track. So it's not like it screws all the way in. It doesn't have to be in a perfect position. And I didn't get my bit ready. And now I am paying the price. And that's it. Keeps that in place. Okay, and that's it. And everything's back together. Now, the one thing I am going to point out, and this is something I should have mentioned when this was apart, is be careful with the springs that you don't mix them up, because the spring that goes into here that pushes this little ball out is a like a denser, stronger spring. It's going to be the same height as the other springs, but these springs are soft. The spring that pushes the main ball up is a much stronger spring. So make sure that you check them out. If you put this whole thing together and you're not getting this, then you know you've switched your springs out somehow. And then just go through them and just kind of give them each a little tiny squeeze, and you'll feel one that's firmer than the others. So just keep that in mind. Okay, gang, final thoughts. This is great. This is fun. Give me more of this style of fidget. Things that we can just kind of have fun with. And, you know, the imagination is great with these things. I love them. These are great. Absolutely, absolutely get yourself one. If you can afford it, if this is something you're interested in, it's a win. Total fun. Okay, gang, thanks for watching.